Hello YouTube, this is Dan from danwayfilms.net here, bringing you my first After Effects tutorial. So today we are going to be creating the Tron lines from the Tron Legacy intro. Looks something like this.
Frontier. I tried to picture clusters of information as they move through the computer.
Okay, we're not going to be doing it this complex, but I'm going to show you the basic idea behind it. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are in After Effects. Let's go to Composition, New Composition, 960 by 540, and hit OK. Alright, so next we're going to go Layer, New Solid, White is fine. Let's just name it Lines, and hit OK. We're going to use the pen tool to create the motion path for these lines. So let's select the pen tool, and let's begin. You can just click to begin, and then hold a shift to allow the pen tool to latch on to perfect angles. The next step is to add the stroke effect. So I typed in stroke into the search. It's under Generate Stroke. So we can grab that and drop it on. Alright, I turned the layer off so it would be easier to draw the masks, but now I'm going to turn it back on. Ah, it's bright. Okay, so we're going to just toggle the masks off right now. And what we're going to do is under Paint Style, we are going to select Reveal Original Image. And voila, sort of. So really, it's pretty simple. We are just going to keyframe the end percentage. So let's set it down to 0. Let's go to about 1 second or so, and drop a keyframe. Move forward a little bit, and let's change that parameter to 100%. Now you can see it animates on for you. Alright, so our next step is to duplicate the stroke. Command D, duplicate. Select Mask 2, and under Paint Style, we are going to choose On Original Image. You can easily adjust the timing by going in and playing with the keyframes and the end parameter. Okay, so now that we have the masks laid out with the stroke effect, we want to create that Tron look. So let's just collapse these. We don't need them right now. And let's go to Effect, Generate, Fill, Effect, Stylize, Glow, Effect, Color Correction, Tint. Okay, let's turn the first two off right now. And, that's kind of ugly. We don't want that. The Tron lines are bluish, so let's select the color picker and let's go and look for some blues that might work. Let's go with this for now. Let's turn on glow, and we're going to set the glow threshold down to about, let's see, 30. Yeah, that works nicely. It's around 30%, and actually don't even really need the tint for this one. So let's just delete tint. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. The lines are moving nicely. You can obviously get a lot more complex than that, but I'm just showing you the basics for the sake of time and for the sake of my poor computer. We don't want to get too complex. Okay, so next you notice that the lines are being led by these really cool balls of light. That's kind of what gives the line purpose. For my video, I went into optical flares and made some adjustments, dropped into a comp, and took a picture. That way, I wouldn't need to reapply the effect for every layer that makes up the ball of light. So, you can do this a couple ways. You can, if you have optical flares by Video Copilot, you can go in and use that. Or not, you can, let's just go to a new composition, hit OK, create a new layer, and just make it black, and let's type in lens flare. and drop that on. Let's make it the 105 millimeter. Drop it right in the middle, and we're going to set the brightness down quite a bit. Not really the color you want, so let's go to color, correction, tint, and let's map the whites to a blue-ish color. And let's set the tint to about 60. Maybe add an exposure effect and bring that up a little bit. That's way too much. Oh, one. Okay. Okay, so you can use that, and then go to Composition, Save Frame As, drops it down to the render queue. I saved mine as a PNG. Hit OK. You can render that out. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to use the light that I already have. Okay, so what we need to do is go to Layer, New, Null Object. Hit M for masks. Select the mask path from mask 1 and copy it. Go up to the null, hit P for position, Control V, and paste. And what has just happened is the path of the line has been copied to the null's position, keyframes and all, so that it animates over time. But it's not looking quite right. The null is way ahead of our line. We need to line up the null's start and stop position keyframes with the stroke effects first and second keyframes for the end percentage parameter. So to do that, let's just hit the tilde key to make the comp go away, and let's hit E and bring up the stroke effect for the first mask. You can see our start and stop keyframes. Let's hit the back arrow to precisely go to this keyframes point in the timeline, and we are going to drag the first position keyframe directly over the first end keyframe. Let's hit forward and go to the next keyframe and do the same. And it lines up. And now, when we go back, the null object lines up perfectly in both position and time with our line. Okay, so now you just want to repeat that for the next two lines, and then we can move on. Okay, so once you finish that, you should have a composition window that moves like this. Cool. So we have the null layers as the base for our lights. So before we move on, let's just rename these really quick so that we don't get confused. Okay, so what I want to do now is drop in the light that we made, or I made. You can drop in the light that you made as well. We're going to set the transfer mode from normal to additive. And really, all we need to do now is match up its position at the tip of the line. That looks pretty good. And now what we're going to do, let's just drop this next to the line 1 null object, take the pick whip, and parent it to the null object for line 1. You have the light following the line. Now it looks a little off, so let's just grab it and move it into place. It's parented to the null object, so it will follow its movements no matter where it is on the screen. I could take it over here, and it would follow perfectly. Now, I have a slight issue, and you may or may not be able to see it, but I have a sudden fall off from my light. So what I'm going to do is go up to the mask ellipse tool, draw a mask around it. Make some adjustments. Now we're going to go hit F for mask feather, and let's feather it out, let's say about 35 pixels should do it. And now we have a nice smooth drop off without any ugliness. Alright, so once you finish, you should have something that looks like this. That looks pretty cool. One thing I did in my video is the lights flicker a little bit, just to sell the effect a little more. So we're going to select light 1, go to Effect, Color Correction, Exposure, Alt-click on the stopwatch, and that brings up our expression box. And we're going to use a wiggle expression to randomize the exposure level to create that flicker that we're looking for. So let's try wiggle, parentheses, 2, 1. And what that means is that 2 times every second the parameter will be changed up to a value of 1. Let's hit OK. It's not really noticeable too much, so let's up it to around 1.6. That's better. It's subtle enough to not be too noticeable, but it sells the effect more. So all we need to do now is copy the exposure and paste it in lights 2 and 3. And it's a wiggle command, so lights 2 and 3 shouldn't follow the same exposure randomness as the first light. One more thing we can do, we can go to Layer, New Solid, call it Grid, drop it down to the bottom. We're going to go Effect, Generate, Grid, and that's kind of ugly. Let's lower the border to around 2. We're going to set size from width and height sliders. So let's just set this to around 120 and 120. Something like that. You can adjust it to how you want. We're going to pre-compose the grid. Move all attributes. Okay, so in the pre-comp, let's just select the color and make it a Tron blue. That looks pretty good. Go back to our main comp, and we want to add a little glow to it. So let's go Effect, Stylize, Glow. Let's lower the threshold to around 25. Maybe increase the glow intensity to 1.3. And let's make the radius around 20. Now, I think we're going to lower the opacity of this a little because it's kind of interfering with the lines. The lines don't really stand out too much. So let's hit T with the grid layer selected. Let's bring it down to around 60%. And that's better. Alright, so that's about it for this tutorial. A little rough. My first tutorial ever, so hopefully you learned something, and hopefully I learned something as well. If you have any questions, feel free to message me or leave a comment below. Alright, till next time, this is Dan from danwayfilms.net. See you later.